This is Dan Mumm. For this mini lesson, we're going to be building an interesting neoclassical hybrid pattern that highlights a few powerful concepts. As usual, I'm not here to simply show you how to play a single pattern. Instead, I'm going to show you its elements, how to put them together, and how they work. And that's so you can incorporate these concepts into your own playing and tailor-make your own patterns for your own purposes, and eventually absorb them into your guitar playing style. And that will give you a more natural control over what you can play, write, or improvise. A common pitfall when approaching advanced guitar style is to try to memorize countless scales, arpeggios, and patterns instead of simply learning the basic building blocks behind them that give you access to all of the same possibilities while allowing you to creatively innovate with your own patterns and style. That's what my Infinite Guitar Method series is all about. Anyway, you can get the full tabs for this mini lesson for free by following the link in the description. So when I made this pattern, I combined a couple different approaches taken from my courses, the Infinite Shred Method and the Infinite Neoclassical Method. If you've taken my course, the Infinite Shred Method, then you'll already be familiar with how I boil down the diatonic scale into 3-note patterns and then combine them to make 6-note patterns. This pattern is based on something similar to that, only this time we'll be working in harmonic minor. Now there are two elements to this overall pattern. The first is a diminished seventh arpeggio, and the second is a harmonic minor shred pattern made up of 2 stacked 3-note patterns. To get started, let's take a look at the diminished seventh arpeggio. Because we're in E harmonic minor, this is going to be a D sharp diminished seventh arpeggio. For this pattern, we're going to be playing 2 notes per string, almost as if the arpeggio was a scale. This is 1 full octave of the arpeggio. Well, you don't need to memorize all the note names right now. At least try to remember that the root note is D sharp. Now we can easily extend that pattern into more octaves by simply finding the octaves of D sharp. Take a look. Now that's a great pattern all on its own, but it's a bit awkward to play when we're changing positions for each octave. So let's take a look at what we could do in one position if we add a standard diminished seventh sweep pattern into the mix. Now you'll see on the tabs that we're playing the same notes in the same order as the last pattern, except the pattern ends before reaching the final C note. This whole pattern is basically in one position until we slide up to the final A note on the 17th fret. We're going to be playing this as a straight sweep pattern, so you just pick once per string and use legato for everything else. Okay, keep that pattern in mind as we move forward. Now let's get back to the 2-note per string pattern and add some notes from the scale so we can play 3-note patterns instead. 3-note patterns lend themselves extremely well for shred, so this is going to allow us to get a hybrid shred/sweep pattern going. It's actually pretty simple, as we're keeping the notes from the arpeggios as the lowest and highest notes per string. And then we're simply adding the note that falls between them from the harmonic minor scale. This gives us a 6-note pattern that plays through 6 of the 7 notes of the harmonic minor scale. The only note that's missing from the scale is G. This works the same way as the 6-note patterns found in the Infinite Shred Method. By skipping over just a single note, we get a better sound for shred than going through all 7 notes of the scale. It sounds less like a scale or warm-up, and more like a deliberate selection of notes. When done right, this makes shred patterns work more precisely with a chord that it's played over. Notice that we now have two alternating 3-note patterns. The first one is a half step and a whole step, and the second one is a whole step and a half step. Then, thanks to the flat fifth of the diminished seventh, the 3-note patterns are staggered by 1 fret, or by 2 frets when crossing the second, third string tuning boundary. Being that we're playing 3 notes per string, we'll be using an alternate picking pattern of down, up, down, and then up, down, up. But you can find the picking direction on the tabs. Now, let's play the same thing in 3 octaves, just like we did with the 2-note patterns of the diminished 7th arpeggio. So you can see this as either being made from 3-note patterns a la the infinite shred method, or that the added notes are scale-based decorative notes a la the infinite neoclassical method. If you haven't mastered position changes yet, this pattern is actually a great exercise just for that purpose. Remember to take it slow with a metronome and use the optimized metronome practice method that I like to talk about so often. If you're not familiar with that, you can find more information about that on my website. Just go to the blog section or articles, something like that. You'll find it. Remember to focus on keeping an even speed between every note transition and position change. And that may require an unexpectedly slow starting tempo. But be patient with it, because however you practice it now is how you're going to lock it in, and you don't want to have to break bad habits down the road. Now we're going to use that diminished 7th sweep pattern again, so we can play a hybrid pattern in one position. This is basically the same pattern we did in the 3rd exercise, only now we're including those decorative notes from the harmonic minor scale, and that's on the 6th, 5th, and 1st strings. Pay close attention to the picking direction and work with it slowly. You'll see we go from alternate picking to sweep picking, and then back again. Notice that we've retained a 2-note pattern on the 3rd string. Well, this might appear to be the same as the 2-note patterns we've done before. It's not. When we did the 2-note patterns for the arpeggio before, we actually only worked through 2 of them. The first one was D sharp to F sharp, that's the root to the minor 3rd, and then A to C, that's the flat 5th to the double flatted 7th. This time you'll see that the 2-note pattern is F sharp to A, that's the minor 3rd to the flat 5th. If you remember, the 6-note pattern we played before played all but 1 note in the E harmonic minor scale, and that 1 note we skipped was the G. Now obviously G falls between F sharp and A, so this 2-note pattern, we would be putting a G in there if we were to fill it in with a decorative note from the scale. You could put that G in there to get another 3-note pattern, but it actually kind of throws off the feel of the whole thing. So for that reason, as well as to get a longer sweep section, we're just going to play the 2 notes on the 3rd string with a hammer on. And that's also the reason we're not going to be sliding up to that high A this time. Having the right number of notes to fit in the rhythm or into a measure is a critical part of building or improvising patterns like these. A quick overview, there's a number of different ways you can change a pattern to make sure that it fits into the rhythm. You could use different notes, different rhythmic notes, such as instead of playing 8th notes, you could play 8th triplets. You could repeat a section of the notes. You could use sequencing, and so on. For our last pattern, we're going to be throwing in some of that to extend the pattern and make it a bit more interesting. For the final pattern, we're going to take the pattern we just played and extend it by using a couple different methods. First, let me demonstrate it, and then we can go over the changes. So if you look at the tabs, you'll see that the first 9 notes of the pattern are the same as before. Basically, it goes up to the F sharp and A on the 3rd string. That's that 2 notes on the 3rd string we talked about. But then something interesting happens. If you recall, I said that putting the G note from the harmonic minor scale at that point would kind of throw off the feel of the pattern. So instead of that, we're going to play another 2-note pattern using an accidental, G sharp. If you'd like to learn more about why that works and everything you can do with it, check out the infinite neoclassical method. To keep it simple today, you can think of this as being like a chromatic passing tone. It's actually a lot more interesting than that, but that'll work for now. It's also a bit of a trick that you can get away with by using a half step below an arpeggio note as a passing tone, even if it doesn't fit in the scale. That on its own achieves a very cool sound. Okay, so after playing the 2 notes with the hammer on, you continue up the diminished 7th arpeggio. Then the pattern is further extended by repeating the 3 notes from the arpeggio on the first 3 strings. And that gives us a straight 1 note per string sweep pattern, although it starts with an up pick motion. Be sure to work this out slowly, as this includes some string skipping, which can be a bit challenging at first. From there, the pattern goes back to how it was in exercise 6, and we reintroduce the slide to the high A to finish it off. And there we have a pretty epic neoclassical hybrid pattern of alternate picking and sweep picking. We've got our diminished 7th arpeggio, we've got our harmonic minor 3-note patterns. Of course, we're also using an accidental there, and some string skipping, and a sequence-like repeat to extend it. Epilogue. Anyway, this is just one small example of how you can use everything you've learned in the infinite shred method or infinite neoclassical method. Stay tuned for more videos like this one to learn other ways you can apply these methods in your own playing, and learn some tricks for combining the methods together to get the most powerful results. You can download the full tabs for this video with the link below. Put in your email address to have the tabs sent to you almost instantly. From there, you can stay tuned for more tips and videos like this one, or unsubscribe at any time. This is Dan Mumm, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.